This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
You are now listening to Vigilantes Radio, presented by the Only One Media Group. This is the people's choice for quality interviews, celebrities, and special guests. Hosted by Demetrius Dinny Reynolds. Call in to join the mix at 701-801-9813. For the complete archive of episodes, visit onlyonemediagroup.com and be sure to like us on Facebook at Vigilantes Radio. We welcome all. Enjoy the show. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your host, Demetrius Houdini Black Reynolds. Enjoy the show.
Good morning, and welcome to another incredible episode of Vigilantes Radio Live right here on iHeart Radio. My name is Deanie, and we have a very special guest for you guys, but I do have to say that this particular episode is pre-recorded, and I can't wait to deliver it to your inboxes. And for you guys who subscribe to the show, you will be the first to know, and I always appreciate that. Before I bring my guest on, I do want to say, don't lose. This is the frequency of the fearless. You know, most people spend their lives learning how to make a living. Far fewer spend their lives learning how to be alive. We learn how to earn, how to compete, how to acquire, even how to survive. Yet many people reach the finish line carrying the same tensions, fears, regrets, and unanswered questions they carried decades earlier. Tonight's guests, or rather this morning guests choose a different path and has chosen a different path. As a teenager, a moment at his father's deathbed awakened a question that would send him across continents, searching for something most people never consciously seek. That is peace, not comfort, not distraction, not success. Just peace. His search eventually led him to a spiritual teacher whose lessons would shape the next 56 years of his life. And this morning we are discussing tension, joy, love, mortality, purpose, meditation, and what happens when a human being dedicates their life to inner work. You're not just here for a talk show, and this isn't just radio. This is revival for your mind, body, and spirit. This is Vigilantes Radio Live. My name is Coach Deanie, and change is possible. Are you ready?
You're listening to the Vigilantes podcast on iHeart Radio. I'm Mo, founder and owner of Noah Guy Heating and Air Conditioning. We're giving away 12 free HVAC systems this year. And if you or someone you know needs one, apply now at knowaguyhvac.com. To grow this mission, we're also seeking sponsors and donations. So let's change lives one system at a time. This is Vigilantes podcast on iHeart Radio.
Are Let's go. All right, again, guys, thanks for tuning in. You're listening to VRL, that is Vigilantes Radio Live, right here on iHeart Radio, and I am your host, Deanie. Our interviews are designed to go behind the music, news, books, art, acting, films, technology, education, entrepreneurship, entertainment, spirituality, and sometimes even past that thing that we call the ego. Our interviews are designed to go behind the scenes and into the minds of these brilliant people. You know, the ones who are out there giving it their all for me, for you, and for the world. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this morning's guest is Stuart Perrin. And he is a meditation teacher, spiritual guide, author, and one of the longest practicing students and teachers of Kundalini Yoga and the lineage of Swami Rudi, who is known as Rudi. For more than 5 decades, he has taught meditation throughout the United States and around the world, while helping students integrate spiritual practice into everyday life. As a survivor of the 1973 plane crash that claimed the life of his teacher, Stuart has continued carrying these teachings forward through his writing, meditation center, retreat, and personal instruction. His newest work, Rudra Meditation, Transforming Life's Tensions into Joy and Love, explores the lessons, experiences, and practices that have shaped a lifetime dedicated to inner transformation. And with that, let's welcome Stuart to our show. Hey, welcome.
Hi.
Hey,
Can you
how's it
hear
going?
me, or do I have to unmute myself?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me here. It's always a joy for me to share the things I learn with people. Hopefully, people will see ways of really working on themselves that they can transform. Probably one of the great epidemics in the world, tension, thing that crosses all borders, it touches 8 billion people, and very few people know really what to do with it. So, that basically is the essence of what I talk about, in this interview.
All right, sounds good. Starting off, I'm just going to go ahead and look into your soul, Stuart. What does a man discover after spending more than half a century looking inward?
The thing I discovered early on, and it still sits with me, the only person on the earth I up again. I have to learn, and have learned, how to master internal chaos, how to transform things that literally create depression, unhappiness, every thought of inner turmoil into heart, into love, into joy. Now, early on, I understood this is one of the things I needed to. I didn't know how to do it. And I write in my book, it took 9 years of traveling half around the world, looking for somebody to teach me how I could build a system in myself that enables me to live with inner peace, quiet, simplicity, and not having to run away from the world to live in a cave in the Himalayan mountains or ashrams or places like that, but how to live in the world, how to recognize the miracle of every aspect of life is one's teacher. Every aspect of life is showing one exactly what they have to do to grow inside. Now look, I was born in I was raised there, and I lived there until 18, 19. And I knew, I didn't have the chemistry to go off and live in some kind of monastery to learn these talking about. I wanted life to be I wanted all the things I'm experiencing to show me how to go deeper inside myself, to open to a higher force in the universe, allow that energy to guide me, and to teach me how to transform all the conflict, tension of the world into something that is my teacher, what I need to do to go deeper in. What I learned is I look out at the world, I see my own reality. I mean, every human being has wars going on inside them, conflict. We're starving for spiritual energy. People are basically unhappy, and they look out at a world they see. Instead of looking out at the world and seeing teacher, life is the most extraordinary teacher. And we as human beings have to build a system inside that enables us to listen to life. Let life teach instead of criticizing, complaining, pointing out all the negative. It doesn't take a genius to point out all the negative stuff. It takes a remarkable person to, what is this stuff teaching me about me? What do I have to do to grow and change? What do I have to do to transform my inner conflict into love, into compassion? To be a person who learns how to forgive other people, and probably even more important, to forgive ourselves. We as human beings are up against ourselves. Everything in life is our teacher telling us what we have to do. And I really believe that if people in this world would learn to live with open hearts, all the wars are going to. Happy people don't fight wars. People that want power, that, all kinds of insanity in the world, they fight wars. People that live with their hearts open, they live with love. They live with compassion. They live with the ability to truly recognize that every human being suffers in one way or another. And having compassion for people, being kind. The Dalai Lama always talks about being kind to people. And this is really true, and I think what I learned early on, honestly, I needed somebody to teach me to do this. I didn't know how to do this. And even at 16 years old, I knew I was incapable of doing this on my own. I had to find somebody who could teach me how to build a system inside in which I can live my life at peace. Now, it took me 9 years of traveling half around the world and meeting teachers and swamis, rabbis, priests, and all kinds of, supposedly holy people, and asking endless questions. And I would hear things like, love, peace, and eat vegetables. And I would say to them, look, I'm a vegetarian. I want love and I want peace. How do I get my mind to shut up? How do I get my emotions? How do I manage, my sexual energy that keeps me horny half the time, when I was a young man? How do I get all of that intensity and that sanity in myself, to calm down? I never got an answer. In 9 years of going half around the world, I never got an answer from him. Until one day, by accident, I met somebody, literally my hometown, New York City, a place I had walked past at least 500 times when I was younger, in Greenwich Village. And, it was an Oriental art show. And a friend of mine and I were going out to have dinner one evening. And we came to this shop, and we're looking in the window. And, this friend of mine knew that I really was very taken with art from Asia. Tibetan art and early Indian art and Buddhist and Hindu art. I was very taken with it. I used to find a very deep attraction to it in my life. I never knew why, except it was always. And he said to me, why don't we go in there and look? I said to Charlie, look, I'm broke. What am I going to do? I was broke. I was living on the floor of this friend of mine's apartment. I didn't have a job at the time. I had nothing. I had been in Europe, and I back from Europe trying to reestablish my life. And he said to me something I'll never forget. Doesn't cost to look. And we went into the shop, and standing in the middle of the shop was a man who I didn't know, but I took one look at him, and I saw a radiance of energy coming up. Excuse me, that was so remarkable and profound. And it was like the man was at peace with him. And the energy coming out of him was sweetness, love. And it wasn't just a superficial sweetness and love. It was like incense. It was like sweetness coming out fire. And I was attracted to this man. I saw a light all around him. Like a magnet, I was attracted to him. I walked up to him, and he began to show me, pictures of him studying with India. And I was there for I didn't say a word, listened to him, and the energy was so strong, that it really did something to change me there. And I just kept listening to him. And he said to me, if you want to come study with me, come tomorrow evening at 5 o'clock. I'll show you a breathing technique and we'll go to one of my classes. The next day, I went back there and he showed me a breathing technique that honestly was exactly what I had spent 9 years looking for. Because the technique wasn't just listen to my breathing, focus on the third eye, focus on the technique had to do with building foundation, grounding. Like a tree needs roots. Everything in nature has roots and foundation. People have no foundation. They spend 98% of their time in their heads. And that yakking, that talking, the tension that's created, conflict, figuring out life, trying to figure out something that it's possible to figure out. People spend all their time afflicted with that tension in the brain. And he showed me technique, breathing, that would bring the focus of my mind and my attention into what's called a chakra, an energy center that is directly below the navel. I learned later on, Chinese, Tian, the Japanese, the Hara, they talk about qi. Qi is the power in a human being. Very few people developed qi because they've never spent time in their life learning how to build that area of. So the meditation exercise he showed me began to get me grounded, rooted. I began to get the strength in myself to where I could keep my heart. My heart wasn't like an accordion. When something good happened, it would open and then it would close and open and close and create an emotional quicksand. It could stay open. I was grounded and I was like a flower. Flower needs a stem, it needs roots, it needs nourishment. And he also told me, he said, the real problem in the world, Stuart, is people are spiritually malnourished. There's an epidemic. People are starving to death spiritually. And the reason they're starving to death spiritually, they haven't learned how to build inside themselves a system that is strong enough to stay connected with higher energy in the universe. And I began to think, what about the life I live, my karma, my interaction in the world? How does all this affect my inner life? And I realized, Stuart, you're here to learn whatever it is your karma is going to bring to you. And in the process of learning it, you have to get strong enough not to be sucked dry and eaten alive by it. It forced me, in my late 20s to go into business. And one of the reasons I went into business, I was never really interested in making a lot of money. I was interested in how can I do this business without becoming a greedy person, without getting sucked dry by the intensity of money and business and all the madness that goes on in that kind of world. How can I stay connected with higher energy? And while I'm dealing with people who all they want to do is, it becomes battle of wits. Who can win the battle of making money? And I learned, Stuart, this is your teacher. It's telling you that the only place to go inside is inside yourself to build a system that is strong enough and connected to a higher force of energy, to build what is called a chakra system. There are 7 basic chakras in a human being. Now, my teacher, Rudi, used to say chakras are like psychic muscles. And I understood that profoundly. If you don't do exercise, if you don't, do yoga, some physical exercise, your muscles will atrophy. Chakras are the same way. If you don't learn how to use them, to build them, develop them inside yourself, develop a link between oneself and a higher force of energy in the universe, these chakras will atrophy. People get older. You understand, one of the things I've also learned in meditation is that the inner life of a human being gets younger. The body is nothing you can do about it. It's going to get older. But the inner life, the creativity, the connection with energy of a higher nature, that's really the source of all creative energy, it gets stronger, stronger. And the thing I also learned, which it took me a long time to, it's not a religion. It's not a cult. It's a craft. And anything in life, we were going to master it. If we want to be an actor, we want to be an artist, we want to be a musician, we have to learn craft. If we want to be a writer, one of the things I had to learn in order to write books was the craft of writing. And that takes time to learn. One has to build knowledge, you have to build an inner life that is strong enough to develop. Meditation is exactly the thing. So that craft is really what enables a person to develop a chakra system that links the higher energy in. And that link, I always tell my students, I say, look, if a car runs out of gas, it's got to go to the gas station to get gasoline to continue running. People run out of energy and they live on they run out of creative energy and they run their lives. Of course, it leads to heart attacks, it leads to cancer, it leads to, people just breaking down, burning out when they're 40 years old. They are not running a source of energy, spiritual energy in the universe, the energy from which all creativity. I remember I once read an article about the composer Bach, a composer I like very much. Music is very beautiful. And he was dying. And everybody was lamenting and crying, and all his friends and students, and his family had a huge family. And he looked at them and said, "Why are you upset? I'm just going to a place where the music comes." Now, when I read that, it went right through me. It's this place where all creativity, the greatest of creative acts, all creativity comes from the place that Bach said he was going, the place where we come from. And then we have to figure out in life, not figure out, but work and develop in life to go back to the source of creativity, the thing that is creating the most extraordinary music. The greatest plays, greatest theatrical play. When an actor is, when they're on the stage or in that moment, understand they're connected with that energy. It gives them the ability to be in the now, to be in the present. All of meditation is about building that capacity, but not just when we're only on a stage. Whatever we do during the we are living in the moment. And life itself becomes something sacred. Life becomes something that we treasure. Every breath is a sacred breath. Everything that we do in life becomes a teacher instead of our enemy. Instead of something that is making us unhappy and depressed, it becomes a teacher that is telling us, look, this is what you got to do to grow. When you look out at the objective world, you see a mirror image of yourself. And it is constantly telling you what you have to do, change, to transform yourself. So instead of fighting with it and arguing with it, we have to learn to listen. We have to learn to listen. I remember when I was younger, in my early 20s, I studied acting. And that was one of the things this acting teacher repeated over and over and over. You have to learn to listen. Acting is about listening and responding according to what you hear. And we as human beings understand that life is also about listening, not knowing better, not knowing that what we understand, what we think is right or wrong, is more important than what everyone else thinks is right or wrong. We have to be able to listen to other people, learn from them. You know, we have to be able to use all of these lessons that life teaches us for one singular purpose, to grow inside. This does not mean we stop having family, we don't have success in life. All of that is essential, especially if it's in one's karma, because it's also ways of learning about. There's no greater way to learn about having a family, raising children. My God, to love children unconditionally. You have to become almost like a saint inside you to deal with their lives, their independence, the things that they want to do with their life, and not in lecturing them and imposing our will on them, but loving them and giving them the freedom to find themselves. So what I learned about meditation is that it opens me to learning in the greatest university there is on earth, life, in all its departments, everything it has to teach. I spent 30 years being in business, literally, to learn this. Because, as everyone knows, when you're dealing in business, there's a tension. How can I stay centered in myself? How can I not judge other people? How can I allow myself to listen to them and learn, and also enable myself to be successful in the business? This was one of the most extraordinary things I learned. And I've always been grateful for the struggles that were involved in making money and being successful. I used to run galleries in New York. I owned galleries in New York, and I would sell to museums all over the world and major collectors and all that kind of stuff. And every one of them brought different reality in my life. I wasn't there to judge them. I was there to listen to them, learn from them, and let them be my teacher. Let them teach me what I needed to do to get over myself. And if it wasn't for years and years of meditation that I practiced, I would have never learned it. I was always looking at an early point in my life to change the external world, until one day I realized, Stuart, you're not going to change the external world. It's been crazy since the day you were born. How can you use what you're learning from life to grow inside yourself? And that really is, why we're born here. Purpose. Buddha said suffering is the fastest path to God. And there isn't a human being on the planet Earth that doesn't go through suffering. Everybody, one way or another, has difficulty in their life.
Absolutely. You mentioned traveling 9 years, and then we'll talk about the book very briefly. You mentioned traveling 9 years to search for this. Now that sounds quite expensive. I couldn't imagine that most people are not able to travel like that around the world and search for their inner peace because of the sometimes lives get trapped in the construct of the system, having to work to pay bills, and that's all that their life is. So how were you able to exercise your freedom to travel and search for your inner peace?
Life was very different when I was younger. I mean, I lived in Paris on.
What if the thoughts you keep to yourself are the exact things everyone else is feeling too? That's the idea behind the powerful podcast, Say It Anyway, with Corey Prophet Boyd, available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Each episode discusses real-life issues, grief, anxiety, relationships, mental health, growing up poor, finding joy, surviving the hard times, and the conversations most people are too afraid to have out loud. Hosted by nationally board-certified massage therapist and multimedia professional, Corey Prophet Boyd. Say It Anyway blends humor, heartfelt storytelling, and real-world insight in the conversations that remind listeners they are not alone. Say It Anyway is funny, emotional, relatable, and deeply human. Listen now on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Say It Anyway with Corey Prophet Boyd.
I'll tell you why. We haven't gotten into it. When I was 16 years old, I was a pretty good basketball player. I was, pretty decent in school. And I thought of getting scholarships, going to college, maybe becoming a doctor, a lawyer, and, something of a professional. And that's what my family wanted. And I'll never forget, I'm 16 years old, and I was in Miami Beach with my mother and my sister. We're on vacation. And we get a phone call that my father is very sick in the hospital. We need to come back to New York. And we flew back to New York. We went to the hospital. My father was lying in bed, had about 106 fever. He did not recognize my mother, my sister, or he was just lying there shaking. And I had never seen anything like that. It shook me to the core of my being. It was the most traumatic thing I'd ever experienced up to that point in my life. And I remember maybe 2 hours before, I went into his hospital room, and he was lying in bed, state of total serenity. I could look in his eyes, and I could see 1,000 miles. The room of light. And I didn't know it, that basically a spiritual experience I was doing. The room was. I took his hand and I said to him, "Do you know me?" And he shook his head. I got up for a few minutes to go to the bathroom or something, and I walked out into the corridor of the hospital. I met his nurse, and his nurse told me something that changed my life. She said to her experience, just before people die, they go into this deep state of serenity. It's like they have let go of everything in life, and they have, no longer are fighting all the battles and tension and all the struggles of life. And they go into this deep, deep state of serenity. And I said to myself, why did my father have to wait 49 years to experience this kind of serenity 2 hours before he died? It shook me to the core of being. And I said, Stuart, you are not capable of doing this for yourself. And I really turned into a hippie. I turned into a beatnik. My whole life changed. I started reading books on Hinduism and Buddhism and all kinds of theological stuff. I started investigating areas of life that I never thought of investigating. How can I find peace? And you always hear when somebody dies, they say R.I.P., rest in peace. Nobody says live L.I.P., live peace. And that began my journey. I no longer cared about career, about it. I said nothing is worth it if I can't live this life in a state of inner peace. And that's why I spent 9 years looking. I was traveling around. I was in Africa, I was in Europe. I was always on my way to India. I was a young man, and I needed to find somebody who could teach me how. I said, what is the point? My father spent all his life working, and he supported a family. Never had a day of inner peace. My mother never had a day. And I said to myself, Stuart, this is more important than making $1 million. What's the point of making $1 million if you can't have one moment of inner peace? And then when I met Rudi, he taught me how to do this, how to build a system. Not saying it took a day and a half to learn, it took years to learn. He once told me, he said, look, Stuart, if anybody ever asks you who the guru is, tell them the guru is light. and he was right. The guru life. And it took me 20 years to learn what he meant. The guru, I had to get over self. I had to get past my ego, thinking what I know and what I believe is right and is right for everybody else. That's how I got involved. And then money came, the success came. I've written a dozen books. I mean, my life has been pretty remarkable. At the same time, I've been capable of maintaining that state of quiet and inner peace in myself. And allowing people, to bring whatever it is in their life, try to help them to learn how to get over it and to master themselves in the chaos inside. That's why. And up to the age of 16, career, money, very important. After that age, it's Stuart, inner peace, quiet. What is the point of making millions of dollars if you can't spend a happy day? And my life changed. And then all the rest of it came. It was my karma to be successful in business, my karma to write all these books that I've written. It's my karma to write this book that, we're talking about today. Rudra Meditation, transforming life's tension into joy and love. That's how it happened. Why it happened that way, honestly, to God, do not understand. All I know is that's what I had. And I really set out at a very early age to do it. And maybe I was lucky because hotel rooms were $1 a night then in Europe, and you could, eat very cheaply, and, you didn't have to make millions of dollars in order to live. Young people have to today in order to survive. They have, the rents are fantastic, and, look, gasoline is $5 a gallon now. I mean, it's just all changed. But if somebody needs that inner peace, want to live and learn how to become a happy person, and they will do what they have to do, living in the kind of world we live today, to learn how to do it. I mean, look, I teach this stuff online. I have Zoom classes, 7 a week. I don't even have a fee for this. I tell people just donate whatever you can afford. I said, yes, I got to pay rent, I got to live and eat, and just donate what you need. Some people send me $10 a month. They go to 7, it's like $2 a class. And if that's what they can afford, God bless them. They are as welcome as somebody who can afford more money, Because when I was younger, if my teacher, Rudi, would have asked me to contribute a fortune of money, I could have never studied with him. So it's always available. People have to need to find it. If they need to find it, it will come to them. There's a wonderful expression, when the student is ready, the guru will be there. And I really believe this deeply inside me. When a person's need, that spiritual life, becomes truly strong, the teacher will be there. They will find a way to learn how to.
Right, I love it. Let's talk about the book briefly because we're running out of time. Your book focuses heavily on tension. Is tension humanity's greatest obstacle?
I believe so. I think it's endemic, and every 8 billion people suffer from it all around the world, no matter where you go. And what language they speak, what race they are, religion they are, where they live, everybody suffers. Now, tension is not necessarily a negative thing. It is a negative thing because people haven't learned in life how to transform the tension into joy and love. They haven't learned how to build a system inside that is strong enough to do that. And that's why I wrote the book. I wanted people to begin to understand there's something you can do about your neurosis, your anxiety, tension, your fear, your insecurity. There's something you can do to truly transform that into a life-giving energy. And I even say in the book, what's killing us can give us life. We just have to learn how to use it consciously. And the book was written with that in mind, and I had to follow my own life and use a bit of memoir in order to point out a lot of it, like the airplane crash. That could have transformed my life into one of depression for the rest of my life, that crash. The person I was the closest to in the world, who basically gave me my life, died in that airplane crash. And I had to make some serious decisions. And the decision I made is, Stuart, now you'll find out what the last 6 years were all about. Now you'll find out if you learned anything from this extraordinary being who taught you for the last 6 years. How can you apply this to your life? How can you use it to help other people? How can you use it to continue to grow in your own way? So yes, tension is endemic. Everybody suffers. And yet, I also say in the book, happy people are enlightened people. But to find a happy person in the world, it's easier to find the Holy Grail and to find somebody that can live every day with their hearts open. So, tension is just something. It's energy. It's energy that is chaotic, that we haven't learned to master, and that it really, it kind of imprisons us in a world that keeps us from truly being happy people. But we can learn to transform it. But, that's what meditation is for. As I said earlier on, it's not a religion, it's not a cult. It's completely non-denominational. You could be Christian, Jewish, Islam, Buddhist. You could be an atheist or an agnostic. We're all human beings. Every human being has tension. And every human being needs to learn how to transform that tension into an open, into love, into joy, into somebody that truly has compassion for the sufferings of other human beings. And tension is just a guidepost. It's telling us, you got to do something about you. You got to do something about you. And I always also tell the people that study with me, look, nobody is perfect. Imperfection is important. And we should never put it down. Imperfection is just a reminder that we have to continue to work on ourselves. When people are perfect, or they think they're perfect, they're right all the time. They just create uptight people that are impossible to be around, who know better than everybody else, and really throw their belief system in everybody's. And my thing is, hey, we're all imperfect. Let us use the imperfection as a reminder that we have to continue to grow every single day. We have to learn to master ourselves. So yes, tension is the key, because everybody, and I think it's the greatest illness on the earth, and yet very few people learn how to master it, how to use it consciously, how to use it to give themselves life instead of allowing it to give themselves suffering and despair and unhappiness, and creating a person who can barely function in their day-to-day life.
Indeed. All right. The name of the book is out now. I believe it's on Amazon, and I will also have the link to Stuart's website in the description of this episode and in the show notes. The name of the book is called Rudra Meditation, Transforming Life's Tension to Joy and Love. And I solely believe what Stuart is speaking about. Tension runs rapid in our lives, unmanaged, unacknowledged. And I think it's time to, really find what's driving our lives. And I hope that is joy, and I hope that is love. All right, Mr. Stuart, before we let you go, I want to find one final question for you. Let's imagine your 16-year-old self walked into this interview this morning. What would surprise him most about the man that you've become?
Well, there's probably about a million things, but look, I think that people have to just come to a simple reality. The only person they're up against to attaining any kind of inner peace, inner joy, themselves. And because somebody managed to do this and is willing to share it and teach people how to take advantage of it, learn how to do it. It's not that I'm looking for students. I'm not. I'm looking for people that truly want to transform themselves. I've had many disciples and students in my life. That's not what it's about. It's about people who truly want to learn how to develop the one thing we're all on the earth to learn how to develop. Highest levels of humanity. Highest levels of our own humanity. Love, kindness, compassion, joy, the ability to live every day at peace with oneself, and the ability to interact with the human race. It no longer intimidates us. No longer have to know better than it. We just have to live every day learning that whatever we experience is there for a purpose. Teach us about ourselves, about what we have to learn to grow inside ourselves. And to recognize, we're not up against the world. We're up against ourselves. Are we willing to learn what life is willing to teach us if we begin to listen? Are we willing to build a chakra system inside ourselves, to learn how to do it, to go to people that can teach us how to do this, to develop that kind of system that enables us to be able to live this miraculous university and this thing called life?
Absolutely. And where can our listeners connect with you on the internet and pick up copies of the book?
I have a website, Stuart Perrin. They can connect with me. I've done many podcasts that are on YouTube and places like that. They can get the book at, they can get it at Barnes & Noble. They can get it at Amazon. I think Walmart can get it. They can get it from any local bookstore. Uses Ingram Spark as a distributor. Now, Ingram Spark distributes almost every bookstore. And if the bookstore doesn't have it in stock, they can get it through them. They can order it for them. The book is readily available. It's available in an Audible form. They can get it from Audible. They can get it from In Audio. And it's available in a Kindle form, which they can get from Amazon and I think Barnes & Noble and other places. Book is readily available, not difficult. It's called Rudra Meditation, Transforming Life's Tension and Joy. And along with it, I have about 8 or 9 other books on Amazon. Some of them novels, some of them short stories, some of them novelettes, most of them books about spiritual practice. There's one called Navigating the River of Time, and there's another one called The Mystical Ferry Boat, and other stories. And there's about 8 or 9 of them there. But the one I really am promoting is Rudra Meditation book, because it goes into everything I've learned in my life in such depth that and it's written in a way where you don't have Sanskrit about all the gods and goddesses and the Hindu and Buddhist mythology. And it's written in everyday language that people can understand. So it's the one I recommend to get initially. And then there are other books also that they can find, especially on Amazon, has all of them. So, and also I've given about maybe 1,400 talks, videos of talks I've given. They can find on YouTube, Facebook, places like that. What I do is readily available. top of it, Didi, I teach 7 classes a week on Zoom. And if people are interested, they just send me an email. Stuart, D as in David, Perrin, at gmail.com. And I'll arrange for them to learn the breathing technique that I use in the meditation. And they'll begin to get a link to. There are people that live on 4 different. So it's all available. And hopefully people will make an effort to find it and use it to help themselves in their life. That's what it's for.
Absolutely. All right, listeners, just in case you need those links, and I know you will because he's offering a class. He has all the material that you will need, over 1,400 talks, class schedules, the website, the books. Dive deep, change your life, change your perspective. All right. This morning's conversation with Stuart Perrin reminded us of something that often gets lost in a world obsessed with speed, productivity, and constant noise. The greatest journey isn't always across countries, careers, or even accomplishments. Sometimes the greatest journey is the one that takes place within. At 16 years old, Stuart witnessed a moment that awakened a question powerful enough to shape the rest of his life. And I believe that question led him across continents through years of searching into guidance of a teacher, through unimaginable loss, and ultimately into a lifetime of service, helped others discover peace, joy, and a deeper connection to themselves. What stood out to me this morning wasn't just the wisdom he's accumulated over 56 years of practice. It's the reminder that growth isn't about escaping life. It's about learning how to fully participate in it, to be present in our relationships, to find meaning in our challenges, to recognize that tension doesn't have to control us and that our circumstances don't have to define us. One of the most powerful ideas we explored this morning is that we can live here and there at the same time. We can handle the responsibilities of everyday life while still nurturing the deeper parts of ourselves. We can pursue success without losing our souls. We can face adversity without surrendering our peace. So for everyone listening, maybe the question isn't whether you have time for inner work. Maybe the question is, what happens if you never make time for it? And Stuart's life offers a very compelling answer to that. I encourage you guys to dive deep into this material. He has spent a lifetime cultivating awareness, gratitude, compassion, and connection. It's a life lived more fully within. So be sure to connect with Stuart Perrin, explore Rudra Meditation, transforming life's tensions into joy and love, and learn more about the practices and teachings that have impacted thousands of lives around the world. We had more questions, more deeper questions, and hopefully one day we can do a part 2 where we could, dive into the moments of the aftermath of the plane crash, the studies abroad with Rudi, and just other key aspects of your life and how we arrive to this moment today. But until next time, remember the answers you're searching for may not always be found in the next achievement, the next destination, or even the next chapter. Sometimes they are waiting in the quiet moments when you finally decide to listen. My name is Coach Dini, and you've been listening to Vigilantes Radio Live, where we bring you the conversations that challenge your thinking, strengthen your spirit, and remind you that change is possible. Keep growing, keep seeking, and don't lose sight. Thank you so much, Stuart. It was our pleasure.
Thank you, Dini. Thank you. Look, I'd be more than happy to come back again and do chapter 2 of this. This was wonderful.
All right. Sounds good, Stuart. Yes, sir. All right. Well, have a great morning and take care.
You too.
Thank you.
What if the thoughts you keep to yourself are the exact things everyone else is feeling too? That's the idea behind the powerful podcast, Say It Anyway, with Corey Prophet Boyd, available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Each episode discusses real-life issues, grief, anxiety, relationships, mental health, growing up poor, finding joy, surviving the hard times, and the conversations most people are too afraid to have out loud. Hosted by nationally board-certified massage therapist and multimedia professional Corey Prophet Boyd, Say It Anyway blends humor, heartfelt storytelling, and real-world insight into conversations that remind listeners they are not alone. Say It Anyway is funny, emotional, relatable, and deeply human. Listen now on Spotify and Apple Podcast. Say It Anyway with Corey Prophet Boyd.
Peace to all. My name is Dini, and I am the host of Vigilantes Radio Live. I think that we are beyond just asking cool questions and getting cool responses. I think that we are here as creatives to provide an example that you can do things different outside of expectations, because some of us simply were not born into the club, but there is perhaps a door, window, or back gate that we can leave a clue for you to get into. Life is short, but there are plenty of moments to try and get it right. Pursuing your dreams and learning from mistakes may be tough, but regret is tougher. To book your interview, email us at vradio@onlyonemediagroup.com. That's a V as in victorious. Or visit onlyonemediagroup.com. I'm counting on you. Heaven, we all are counting on you to step into your purpose and your passion. You are listening to Vigilantes Radio Live on iHeartRadio, providing you with an opportunity to dive deeper.
You are now listening to Vigilantes Radio, the people's choice for quality interviews, art, music, and hot topics. Hosted by Demetrius Houdini Black Reynolds. All episodes of this podcast are available for free download at www.onlyonemediagroup.com.